Tonight, cut off again. Local anger as Optus services drop out for mobile and data users. And concerns Outback Health Services could suffer under the cuts to 457 visas.
This is Southern Cross News with Tim Hatfield.
Good evening, but first tonight a man was killed on the Barrier Highway near Burra yesterday when his car had a head-on collision with another vehicle. The 58-year-old from Adelaide was the sole occupant of his car and he died at the scene. In the other car was 3 people from Peterborough who were dragged to safety after their car went up in flames. A woman was taken to the Royal Adelaide Hospital with serious internal injuries while the 2 men were treated locally. Major crash investigators were at the scene to determine exactly what happened today. The accident took the state's road toll to 23 for the year. Thousands of Optus customers on the Eyre and Yorke Peninsula went without phone and internet connections earlier this week after a fault with the telco's connection. It's the second time in weeks that Optus has experienced major disruptions to their network, leaving businesses and users without signals. Our reporter Jason Kemp has the details.
Upset Optus customers took to social media yesterday to vent their anger after the telco operator left them high and dry without connection for the past 24 hours. The outages were recorded as far west as Coffin Bay, right down to Ardrossan on the Yorke Peninsula. It's the second time in weeks that Optus has had major disruptions to their network for customers on the west coast, causing businesses to be left without communications to operate and daily users in the wilderness. Many customers voiced their frustrations with the network on Facebook and Twitter yesterday, some even saying that they would be changing to a new network after repeated outages over weeks and months. In a statement to Southern Cross today, Optus confirmed mobile customers in Port Lincoln and parts of the EP experienced mobile service disruptions and credited the outages to the damage of a Telstra fibre cable that Optus leases off the national provider. Optus says technicians replaced the damaged cable and services were then restored last night. It issued an apology to its customers, but for many, the damage has already been done. Many online complaints were seeking compensation for having their phone lines and data connections constantly interrupted, making it hard for business owners to operate and others simply to go about their daily routine. Optus has advised Southern Cross that compensation is considered on a case-by-case basis and that anyone who has experienced recent significant outages to contact their helpline.
Jason Kemp reporting there. Concerns for healthcare in regional communities like Broken Hill have been raised following the federal government's decision to scrap 457 visas this week. The National Rural Health Alliance says there's a large number of international medical graduates in rural Australia and the scrapping could have a detrimental effect on remote health.
Regional places like Broken Hill rely heavily on overseas health professionals.
We know about 40% of doctors who work in rural and remote Australia are international medical graduates.
Mr Butt says overseas trained doctors, nurses and allied health professionals are vital to health in remote areas. Removing the 457 visa would also make it harder for visitors on a temporary work visa to apply for permanent residency.
A lot of doctors who've come into Australia from overseas have applied for permanent status and are very valued members of the community now. So we see that as a potential disincentive for people from overseas wanting to come to Australia in the first place.
The Far West Local Health District says it's too early to comment on the potential effect it could have on staff. The National Rural Health Alliance wants to make sure new labour market testing requirements don't prevent millions of Australians living in regional communities from receiving health care.
First off, we want to ensure that those market testing requirements don't delay the access to services, don't delay people coming into the country to provide services in rural and remote Australia.
Their second goal is to push for a proper plan to be released detailing the distribution of workforces.
It's all very well to say we want Australians in Australian jobs. That's fine as a concept. But we know that we are actually highly dependent on overseas trained health professionals. We know we don't have the distribution rights, so your access in rural and remote is harder.
The 457 visa will be abolished by March next year. Patrick Reinke, Southern Cross News.
Well, as we approach winter, houses across the regions will start firing up their heaters. The MFS says we should immediately inspect wood fires, chimneys and the flues to prevent nasty accidents in our homes.
If today's dreary weather is anything to go by, we should begin bracing ourselves for the onset of winter. The colder weather means we'll be looking to heat up our houses with our gas and wood heaters. But with the heat comes the danger of starting a blaze.
If you block the flue, the potential for the smoke to come back inside the house, which could flood your house full of smoke, could also send superheated gases into your house. The potential obviously up in the roof space.
The MFS suggests we use this time to inspect our chimneys and flues prior to their first use this winter. People with a fireplace should look for blockages and also ensure insulation isn't coming into contact with the resulting heat.
That includes the shrouds up on the roof, make sure that insulation, vermin, those sorts of things haven't come into contact with the flues, which could prevent a potential house fire.
But fire is not the only consequence. A block flue could encourage the build-up of carbon monoxide, an odourless invisible gas, which will suffocate you unless there's proper ventilation.
There could be potential for carbon monoxide to come into your house, and you don't smell it, you don't taste it, but it will kill you.
Further tips can be found on our Facebook page. John Hunt, Southern Cross News.
A Whyalla man will face court after being arrested and charged with drug trafficking following a search early on Tuesday morning. Just after 2 a.m, police stopped and spoke to a driver of a white Holden Calais in White Street in Wailanori. A police search allegedly found 37 grams of methamphetamine along with a large quantity of cash. The 34-year-old was then charged with trafficking a controlled substance. He was also charged with hindering police and resisting arrest after a struggle with officers. He was bailed to appear in the Whyalla Magistrates Court at a later date. Well, stay with us. Still to come in tonight's local news, the space race. Could our region be the perfect base to help Australia reach for the stars? The details ahead. Welcome back. Businesses across Port Lincoln saw a bumper trade over Easter thanks to a combination of the school holidays and a showcase of events. It's the first time the town recorded such high trade over the long weekend, with families deciding to stick around instead of going elsewhere.
It's all smiles for many businesses who received a welcome boost over Easter.
Easter weekend's always a good weekend for us, but I think this Easter with the Tikal Auto Sprint, it brought a lot of new people to town, new demographic of people, and it's fantastic to see the streets buzzing, businesses booming. Yeah, very good.
The hotels were full, the streets were alive, and publicans couldn't be happier.
Fantastic. Full house, people everywhere, the restaurant was full, bars were great, yeah, it was fantastic.
It was the first time that bars and restaurants saw outstanding trade over the long weekend, with past Easter holidays families heading elsewhere. But the town was also propped up by visitors to the region.
Generally, Easter's been quiet for us, people go away, bottle shop's okay because people are taking alcohol away with them, but yeah, the Tikal racing brought in a lot of people, a lot of new faces, which was good for us.
Hospitality owners imploring the town to get behind more events to keep bringing people back to the region.
I'd love it to continue on for a lot of years. I think it's great for Port Lincoln that we've got events like the Tikal Auto Sprint, Salt Festival, Tunarama improving, new and improving, and yeah, we need more events, and it's fantastic that these guys have come on board and done a fantastic job.
Who knows, they might come back throughout the year, so yeah, it was great.
Jason Kemp, Southern Cross News.
The NAPLAN test has been assessing primary school students for the last 9 years, and this year the test was supposed to be taken online, but after technical issues, Port Pirie schools will be following others across the state by taking the test back on paper.
It might be school holidays right now, but in a couple of weeks, primary school students will sit the NAPLAN test. The test was going to be online this year, but was pulled due to technical problems.
What happened was, with just 3 weeks out, there were a number of technical issues that emerged with some of the questions that were not resolved.
And now it's back to pen and paper. The Education Department says it didn't want to jeopardise students' results.
And so we took the decision that because what we really want to do is test kids' literacy development, not test, not have that influenced by the nature of the online testing.
Power outages, internet reliability and computer skills were of concern.
But I think some of them are also quite disappointed because they were feeling well prepared and are convinced that, the online testing is, in a sense, the way of the future.
The principal of St Mark's was equally concerned happened with the online test.
I think it was me having a natural hesitancy around the ability for the online process to be simple.
Students in years 3, 5, 7 and 9 will take the test on paper here at St Mark's Primary School when classes return. But Principal Hay isn't ruling out the possibility of an online test in future.
I think the schools generally value the NAPLAN process and inevitably the online opportunity will happen.
Students will sit the NAPLAN test from the 9th to the 11th of May. Amelia Simpson, Southern Cross News.
The state government is gearing up to host the nation's space industry, teaming with the national peak body to develop a national space agency. And the outback in our region has been identified as the perfect place to reach for the stars.
South Australia has a unique relationship with space travel, with the Wimmera testing range near Port Augusta a frequent gateway to space exploration. The industry is worth $323 billion globally, something the state government is keen to further develop.
Australians every day are using satellite services, so we invest heavily in it, and our argument is we should be a player in that industry.
The state government, along with the Australian Space Industry Association, will lobby Canberra to develop a national space agency. Based in SA, it'll put a rocket up our space economy by encouraging testing and research and development. The association says it'll provide Australia with a launch pad to becoming an international space powerhouse.
We would benefit certainly in terms of international cooperation, but it would also give us a focusing point for our industry.
And Mr Davis believes our region has the conditions to make it a success.
Its geography is certainly lends itself to certain types of space launches.
The Minister has also backed our region's qualifications, saying the vastness of the area makes it a perfect candidate.
To the north and northwest of Wimmera, an area, the size of Europe, frankly, to use, which is fairly uninhabited and ideal for this sort of work.
John Hunt, Southern Cross News.
Well, stay with us when we return after the break. A change in the weather as the cooler and wetter conditions set in. The details ahead. Welcome back. Broken Hill enjoyed its first spot of rain for some time today, coming off the back of a very hot summer. The Australian Climate Council says there's a warmer than average winter ahead as well.
Gutters flowing, streets flooded and cars making a splash. Today's rain was a refreshing change from a hot summer. But looking ahead into the winter months, it might not be as cold as we first thought.
I think you could expect, on average, a warmer winter than people would have remembered 40 or 50 years ago. That doesn't mean every winter for sure will be warmer. It's just that climate change is stacking the odds toward having unusually warm winters.
The effects of climate change are starting to show, with Broken Hill sweltering through one of its hottest summers on record. There was no rainfall recorded in February or March. The last time that happened was back in 1972.
Temperatures were about 1 to 2 degrees warmer than average across summer as a whole. There was a pretty solid run of days over 30 through January and February.
Some areas are getting warmer more than others. And when you look at the records around Australia, the region in western New South Wales around Broken Hill is one of the areas that is tending to experience more extreme heat now compared to 50 years ago.
Mr Stevens says heat waves are occurring more often and they are more intense. And unless greenhouse gases are reduced and more renewable energy is used, it'll get worse.
More extreme heat around Broken Hill, warmer winters and so on. That's pretty much locked into the climate system for the next few decades at least. So expect these trends to continue into the 2030s and 2040s.
Meanwhile this week, Port Lincoln recorded its hottest autumn day in over a century, getting to 34 on Tuesday. Patrick Reinke, Southern Cross News.
Well, Port Pirie's Art Gallery has an interactive exhibition on display which takes viewers back in time to life on ships. Rough Medicine, Life and Death in the Age of Sail dares visitors to set sail on a journey which turns pretty horrific when inflicted by illness.
Children set sail on an adventure with the barber surgeon discovering what life was like when you got sick on board colonial ships.
What I'd like you to do now, your job, is to explore
all of the things that you can see in here.
Smells irritated their senses,
Have a smell.
while they're confronted with the reality of life on a ship.
And sometimes people get a little bit sick for a bit longer, for a little while. What's the sound you make when you're sick? Oh no!
It's all part of an exhibition tour inspired by the South Australian Maritime Museum, which landed in Port Pirie last month.
On display in those cabinets are pills and potions, instruments, all the gory things that might have to have been used on board a ship if you were travelling by sail, if you're a convict or a free settler in the days of sail.
The workshops with the barber surgeon ended today, but the public still has access to the gallery.
Some of the things are very old. They've been sourced from libraries, state libraries and museums from around Australia. We have this interactive smell sensation, which you can actually lift up a little vial and smell something that might have been on board ship.
And it's the perfect opportunity for kids on school holidays.
We've extended it to May the 28th, so you haven't missed out.
Keziah Sullivan, Southern Cross News.
Well, time now to see what's biting out on the Gulf waters. Here's this week's fishing tips.
Welcome another week around the Gulf Fishing Tips. I tell you what, we're going to start the story with a little bit of where to be and where not to be. Over the weekend we were fishing at Wallaroo, chasing a few squid and all that sort of stuff. Couldn't get a whiting for love nor money. About 14k south of us, there's an old mate that wanted to catch squid, and all he was doing was pulling in whiting. So it's just a matter of being in the right place at the right time. Certainly wasn't for me that weekend. But anyway, when you move around, Port Pirie, we've done a lot of King George whiting. You're just starting to pop up. Small in size, but you can get a feed. Yellowfin whiting, on the other hand, though, they're just about jumping into buckets. So try there right through from Barras Beach to Talawi Beach, you'll get a feed. But don't forget, there's cold snaps bringing in the garfish. So there's been good catches over last weekend, and I reckon they'll be a bit better this weekend as well.
G'day and welcome to this week's Fishing Tips from Port Augusta, Jewel of the North. Well, what a fantastic Easter long weekend, beautiful weather, lots of crabs around, a few King George whiting getting caught. Lots of puffer fish, unfortunately hammering the baits, but also a fair few snook getting caught on the troll too.
Welcome to Whalers Fishing Report this week. There's been some good numbers of squid starting to come in from down towards the Mount Young grounds. There's plenty of small ones there, so you just got to pick through them to find the biggest squid. Also, the King George whiting starting to move in the same grounds. Once again, still a lot of smaller fish, but if you pick through them, you can get the better ones. Also the crabs, they're still running in the same area. Once again, further down south, the better. For the snapper, there's been some good fish starting to arrive through the Point Lowly Rip, and a few of the local drops are starting to produce some bigger fish also.
G'day and welcome to Fishing Tips in Port Lincoln. Well, locally in the bay, the whiting have started to improve, so some fish are moving into the bay. But yeah, whiting have been caught inside the proper, out around Boston Island and up along the North Shore. And there's been some squid around, and there's been some salmon up to around about 1 kilo, and quite a few salmon have been caught off the main wharf. Out wide of Port Lincoln, there's still a few tuna down at the Cabbage Patch, along with a few skipjack tuna down there as well. Moving over to Coffin Bay, out wide of the bay, there's been some Samsons out wide around Rocky, and a few kingfish, small to medium, around Greenlee Island.
We'll stay with us after the break, the Friday forecast and the weekend weather. Welcome back. Turning to the weather now, some wet and stormy conditions moving across today. Port Augusta up to 24, the same in Port Lincoln. Whale at 23 today, 25 in Port Pirie. Broken Hill with 22 today. On the national satellite image, thick cloud continues moving across the region and continues dropping rain on most parts. Out on the waters, the winds to 15 knots and southwesterly for the Gulf tomorrow. The seas below a metre and also southerly. Sunrise is at 6:45. So more showers to wrap up the week. 25 in Port Augusta and 24 for Whale and for Port Lincoln. Port Pirie 27, 23 in Broken Hill as the rain continues. Port Lincoln then set to see showers continue over the weekend, 24 and 23, much the same in Cleve. Woodner drying out to 26 and 27. Whyalla also wet this weekend, 24 then 25, 26 then 27 for Port Augusta, Kadina with showers both day and 25 as well. Port Pirie showers and 26 for Saturday, then 27 for Sunday, Clare wet with 23 degrees both days, Broken Hill also on 23 for the weekend, rain on Saturday but becoming fine into Sunday. And that is the local news for this Thursday evening. Don't forget you can stay up to date with us on Facebook and on Twitter. You can also watch past bulletins on our YouTube page, and you can get in touch via email. We'll see you back here tomorrow night from 6:30. I'm Tim Hatfield from the Southern Cross News team. Have a good evening. Good night.